Instagram, YouTube, just jamming van life down our throats these days. I don't know what the question was, but apparently van life's the answer.
That's van life, baby! And if you're contemplating van life for yourself, whether it be a weekend or a lifetime, this is your one-stop video to answer any question you might have about what it's like in here.
Let's do a little tour thing too, yeah?
We're Tim and Finn, and Pepper, and we became digital nomads by starting an Amazon FBA business. We had previously shared our honeymoon around the world, RV road trip to Alaska, and a year living in Mexico. But this month, we're living in a rental camper van at only $65 a day. This video isn't sponsored or anything, we're not that famous. To see as much of California as we can. In our previous episode, we shared our first day in the van at Sequoia National Park, but before we share any more of this trip, we want to first take you through a tour of our new tiny home. Let's start with the bathroom. There is no bathroom. You might watch other videos with full-time van lifers. A lot of those people have custom builds where they have maybe put a bathroom in the van. That's not common in a camper van rental. Coming from a girl's perspective, I will say that I was skeptical, nervous, unsure of how inconvenient that would be, but I will say here after in our third week, it really has not been that big of a deal. Later in this video, and you can check down below in our different mapped out chapters of this video, we will run through where we sleep at night. And we're typically spending a lot of the time in campgrounds, and there are bathrooms and showers in the campgrounds. When we're out doing our activities during the day, we're using things like the pit toilets at state parks or national parks, or even just the restaurant that we're having lunch in. So what do you got going on in here?
Because this is a van, this whole area is your living area. So over here, you got your little like hangout sesh. This is, your dining room too. You've got this magical table. It swivels around. Over here, a mini kitchenette. What could be in a mini kitchenette, you ask? Well, you got running water over here. I know. It's a faucet, only cold water. It's a camper van, it's fine. You've got a microwave. You've got a mini fridge. You've even got a stove up here. What you'd expect in a mini kitchenette. Tim, can you stand up in there? Is it comfortable? You may be asking right now. Look at this. Look at that. 6'1", despite all odds. I hit that level. This is up to 6'5" in here. We got a fan, we got lights. It's crazy, it's insanity. No, it's not. It's a camper van, and it's pretty comfy. But most important, storage on storage on storage. We've got storage over there, storage up here, storage below me, storage over under pipa. And look, even storage under the sink.
Chapter 1 is essentially the preface. It is, how will you be van lifing van life? Do not try to pigeonhole yourself into how someone else is describing van life to you. Know what is going to work best for you, whether this be a weekend vacation, a 2-week trip through a national park, or your full-time new lifestyle. Always keep that in the back of your mind of what your trip or life is going to be like while you listen to our remaining advice and other videos as well.
AKA Champagne Wishes, Van Life Dreams. Here's the thing. One of the reasons van life is so popular is people who are in their custom build-outs or like low-key vans. You can save a lot of money in where you're sleeping because guess what? You can go park in neighborhoods, you can stay at Walmart parking lots for free. The world is your oyster. We are in a branded rental camper van. People are going to notice if we're in neighborhoods, but that works for us because we want to go see state parks, national parks, so we're paying that low nightly park fee, and guess what? We get bathrooms, we get showers, all that stuff. So that is working for our personal trip. However you van life, sleep, and dream, that's all up to you.
I'd be remiss if we didn't say it here. My expectation of van life is going to be out the back door every time there's a mountain or ocean view. Despite being in the mountains and being along the ocean for the past 3 weeks, it is very challenging to find those beautiful views. So if you're doing van life just for your business to take those beautiful photos, Do not underestimate the challenge it is to find those remote places in order to take those photos through the door. That is not the reality. Here in campgrounds, this is the reality. I'm opening up a can of worms for chapter 3 with Wi-Fi, but I also know that the majority of the people I'm talking about to here are considering van life because maybe you can do some work from the road. Tim and I have always had a lot of challenges finding Wi-Fi in the States, in our RV, and here in the van. Our specific Wi-Fi requirements need a lot of upload speed because we have this YouTube business. Your internet requirements might be a quick email from your phone on cell signal. If you picture yourself going off boondocking on BLM free land, we'll talk more about that later, and truly out alone, I would say you're not going to have a lot of cell signal out there or Wi-Fi. If you see yourself stealth camping in an urban environment, of course you're going to have cell signal in downtown LA. In state parks, and definitely national parks, it seems like the second you drive in through the entrance, the cell signal just beautifully disappears. That's because you're out in the wilderness. That's great. It's not a great time to do business. At private campgrounds, sometimes they offer Wi-Fi that's typically not fast enough to even really use. So a big part of what your internet is going to be is whatever your phone gives you access to while you're out and on the road. Since you're out and on the road in mostly wild areas, you may not have a strong cell signal. So in the US, just be confident with your carrier. We've heard that Verizon is the best, and that will give you the best service and best internet access on the road.
Camper van costs. This bad boy, $65 a day. Would you believe it? You should. It's a swinging deal. I looked into small RV rentals on the West Coast. They started at $250 a day. That's a lot more money. If you want to build something out and go live in it, I mean, it really just depends. You could easily spend north of $100K. You could get an old plumbing van and throw a cot in it and probably be out the door for $2,000, right? So it varies a ton. Speaking of variable costs, you've got other things like food, gas, and lodging. So food, whatever you eat, that's what it's going to cost you. It's not going to be much different from home. Gas, this hog gets 16.1 miles per gallon. I know because I've been keeping track. It's pretty good in one of these big vans. Finally, what was the last thing? Accommodations. Just keep this rolling. We'll do it hot.
Yeah, accommodations.
We're staying in state parks and national parks. It's going to cost what it's going to cost. Out on the West Coast, things cost a little bit more. This RV park, it's a private one, $80 a night. When we were staying in state parks, it was more like $40 a night. We could stay in the Walmart parking lot and listen to hot shots from high school rev their big trucks for $0 a night. It's all in what you're looking for.
While you might be researching weather for your trip, think about it in the context of sleeping in a car. If you had to go sleep in your car, in your driveway tonight, what would you need to think about? The temperature, how you're gonna get water, all those things. So once you start to frame it in the reference of where would you go tonight in your climate, you're gonna have to think about that wherever you're traveling. In the 3 weeks in California, in late August and early September, we have had over 100-degree heat that we had to stay in a hotel because it's too hot to sleep in here. And we've also been so cold that we couldn't even fall asleep in this van. So how do you regulate temperature in a van? This rental has solar on top that's powering some electronics inside, which also include a ceiling fan that's been helping us vent. Now, of course, you're not cooling down the van 30 degrees if it's super hot, but it is nice if you just need a little airflow through there if it's warm. Water is typically available either right at your campsite or within the state or national park. Almost all tap water is drinkable in the States if you're from another country, and we just usually buy 1 or 2 of these at the beginning of each trip, so we have a big jug to carry along with us.
So my background is in plumbing, and I can really appreciate everybody who's put a ton of effort and just work into the custom build of their van for their perfect van life, right? One of the things I don't necessarily understand is people who've not yet dabbled a toe in the van life who put so much money into this. The crazy thing about some of these vans and the really extravagant builds is they already exist for cheaper. They're called a very small RV. While a Class B RV might not have the stealth aspects of a van, really likely you can save a ton of money and effort, which I love doing, in just buying one of those as opposed to building out a van yourself. All of that being said, and I don't want to brag too much, but did a little bit of customizing right here. This is going back to Florida with us.
Part of the beauty of van life is that you can be as spontaneous as you want and you can, sleep in your car. But in our reality, it doesn't really work so much like that just on a short trip, because national parks, state parks, and some of the best campgrounds are really competitive. A lot of places are seasonal, like in the summer, and some people plan these trips out in their vans or RVs a year in advance. So grabbing a spot is really competitive. How do you go about planning your route? Well, there's some resources that I want to share with you. One of them is freecampsites.net. That is a website. It is not an app. It's not even very mobile friendly, but it's a great place to find free camping anywhere in the country. There's also an app, Campendium, and that is a really easy way to search for campsites, including county, state, or national parks. And you can essentially use that as a resource to then find those places. Then you go out to, let's say, like the government website where you would book a campsite. So you're booking your campsite at a recreation.gov. iOverlander is also a website and an app that's really popular for the van lifers who live full-time in their van. A lot more of those spots are those stealth camping free spots where it's user submitted, and some of that information might just be like, hey, I parked last night on a residential street and there was no overnight parking and I was fine. So if you're comfortable with that, that's a great resource to find those types of sites. When it comes to your itinerary planning in general, I have a free download on our blog that I'll link to below to help you map out your trip. It's framed in an international travel, but it works just as well for your road trip. I will always just say make sure to plan rest days if your trip is over 10 days long, and to never underestimate the length of time that a drive takes. Do not use Google Maps. Remember, you're stopping, taking pictures, and enjoying the ride, not just beelining from point A to point B.
Chapter title, Driving Miss Finney. I've been doing 99% of the driving on this trip. I also did 99% of the driving during our RV trip. I greatly prefer riding around in a van. Right now you're saying, what's it like to drive this big camper van around? Isn't it terrible? No, if you can drive an SUV around, this is not really bigger. It gets a little top heavy in some of those curves, but guess what? You're not racing anywhere. You're living that van life. Quick little tour of the cockpit up here. We threw this cooler up here. Are there cold drinks in there? No, it's mostly a bunch of camera and stuff, and I see that Finney's curling iron has made its way forward. One of the things we bring on every trip, because I'm crazy, boom, look at this big inverter. Just like your house plugs for electric, this camper van does not put out any sort of like electric outlet that works when you're not hooked up to shore power. So you just plug this into the cigarette lighter, boom, we got power to charge things that can't charge by USB. I could spend quite a while pontificating on how much better driving this van is than driving around an RV, but that is stepping on our next chapter.
So thanks for your participation today in our Instagram poll asking us your van life questions. A lot of you were asking about how we would compare this to the RV, and I think Tim touched on the drivability just now. I think that's pretty obvious if you've been following along with us, because that was a 30-foot RV Class A, which this is just a van. And as a passenger, mostly, because Tim's doing a lot of the driving, it's stressful no matter what. It's just stressful in the car. It's noisy. The pots and pans are rambling around. You have limitations. So I don't think it's any surprise that this is better for drivability.
This is a nice short trip though. And if it came down to where we want to live, we've been stepping on each other this entire time. So yeah, I mean, if you're doing something long-term, a van is tight and an RV is much more comfortable. I miss when I was driving in the RV and you would get up and go make lunch while we're driving, or having that big Class A dashboard that I could throw a $5 hot and ready on the front of and
Yeah.
eat pizza while I was driving.
And we were working, we were using the table a lot. So again, just how you're using it, I would not want to live in this ever. I'm trying to think if even when we were younger or something, like I don't think that.
Even if it was a custom van build out and we had 4 more feet and it was like tuned perfectly to like.
We're just constantly running into each other. You can stand in this one, both of us. In our camper van in New Zealand rental, you couldn't stand in there at all. And there's just no way. But even...
That was a minivan with a mattress. Let's be real.
Even though you can stand in this one, I don't think we would be happier on a trip longer than a month in here. It's just too much. We would need too many breaks. So, you know, RV versus camper van, when it comes to us, you guys know us, it would just depend on the trip. I'm so glad we don't have an RV for this trip. This is great for this trip. I don't even think we'd be able to get into this campsite with our RV.
It's been awesome for the national parks too, like whipping around on those mountain roads. That gets real dicey in an RV real quick. Some of the like grades are pretty crazy. This thing even has it's like hill descent assist or something where it gears down lower and does engine braking. Perfect. It's just so much more nimble and I enjoy driving it. And one of the big things with the RV, we were always driving around waiting for it to break. With this, I mean, it's a rental, so we don't care. But also, it's just a normal van with a bed in the back. It's probably not going to break.
The bed is comfortable. So we were more comfortable. We had a queen size bed in the RV, but this is comfortable enough. The bed is too short for both of us. But if you were 5'8" or maybe even 5'9", you'd fit just fine.
Just let those toes dangle.
Yeah. User submitted question. Best part, van life. Worst part, van life.
Best part, drivability. I love driving a van around. It's super easy to stop. We throw up the drone, take pictures, whatever. Love it.
Best part, I really like road trips. I like being able to just have your kind of stuff right there and your food right there and just always on to the next thing. So the nature of a road trip is what I really like about van life.
Worst part, I think it is stupid that it does not have an inverter built in. I think it's silly we had to bring our own, and it's silly that you can't use a like house plug for electric unless it's hooked up to shore power in some sort of like RV park.
Worst part, I think this lifestyle or type of trip always shows the illusion of spontaneity, but in reality, as the trip planner, this is always a very planned and specific trip because all of the best spots are way too competitive to just show up at. So in comparison to some of the international travel we've done, where every single night you could just book a hotel or wherever you want just as your trip is going, camping doesn't really lend itself to that unless you're boondocking, which we always just have thought is just kind of like being in a pit of dirt for no reason.
I think you have a better worst part than me.
And we're gonna get so much hate because I know a lot of you love boondocking because if you're like living this lifestyle, I don't know, it's usually never anywhere you even want to see. I don't know. Except for like a couple very sweet, like Lake Powell or like some awesome places, but
Yeah. Or you get in a yelling match with some guy flying his drone over your thing at 5:30 in the morning when you're boondocking. But
if you want to hear more of the realities of this, we have an entire video of RVing, our honest opinion, and it's mostly just this kind of stuff because boondocking is like, oh, you're out there all by yourself. No, you have to legally free camp in very specific areas. You drive 10 miles all the way down a dirt road to park in one little tiny pad of dirt, and then there might be 8 other cars all going, wow, we're out in the wilderness. No, you're all shoved in there with 8 other cars going like, we're all hanging out on solar power. Isn't this fun? I don't get it.
start the generator. Hey, kids, start screaming. Yeah, it's interesting.
That's what boondocking is to us. I'd rather just be in a Walmart parking lot and like get on with my day the next day.
I'll take Cracker Barrel.
Cracker Barrel, best free camping. That's
That's
your
a
tip
secret.
for this trip.
Give me a pillow.
Wait, we're both in the frame? Pepper, come on, honey.
Oh,
Look how
it's so
inside.
comfy.
Well, this is how we should do all of our YouTube videos now. Because this looks fake. This looks like it's just on the screen.
I know, it looks edited this way.
Wow, that's so interesting. This would
Maybe-
be such a good intro to a video. Pepper, you want to come up here? Is there anything interesting we can say, or just this is too interesting just to look at?
Is this how we should start the van life video? Should I say van, like, what was my opening line again?
Oh yeah, van life's so hot right now.
Yeah,
Shoving it down our throats.
yeah, do you want to do that?
You've got all this garbage in my shot.
We'll get it, well first off turn it off so the battery doesn't die.